So changing hats here, Eric. So kind of being a financial markets expert of sorts, kind of how are you kind of planning and kind of with your company thinking about the world, not knowing what's going to be happening here?
Well, it is. It's an interesting time. If I step back take a bigger picture view, if I can, and I'll try to be brief. For a lot of small emerging companies, it's always a bear market, right? Raising capital is incredibly difficult, and of course, when you're doing hard things and you're building, it requires capital. So. The thing I learned with coming from Wall Street to the corporate world is it takes all different skill sets and experiences to be successful. And I was able to bring that experience that I do have from the financial markets to a team that had incredible technical talent. We had technology that had been developed. We had end markets and domain expertise, but we needed more to pull it all together. And that's the role I play. Now, episodically, it's never a straight line, right? There's always, and of course, you have to deal with outside forces. And today, those forces are difficult. They're tightening up. I think in this environment, like everyone, you have to, really spend time prioritizing what you're going to do. You could have 100 things to do, but you're not going to do them all in the next 6 months. And you just you have to make these difficult decisions. And it's an interesting part of the job. It does have its benefits because focus is typically going to be better than trying to do the scatter shot. So it's a way of being disciplined. So I think the investors that in this investment climate can make you more disciplined, and I think that's that's the way we're looking at it.
Oh, that's great. And then kind of around the topic of kind of value selling, Diana, how do you think about that these days?
Yeah, it kind of parlays off of what Eric was saying. So, my background in corporate cost reduction, really, I've been through 2 recessions. I think Eric has been through 2 as well, is you really learn how to become flexible and adjust, where you're selling and what you're selling, and recognizing that the companies that you're selling into are looking to cut costs, or they're looking to increase revenue, they're looking to increase the bottom line. And during a recessionary time, or a time like we're going through right now, the easiest way to increase the bottom line is by cutting costs. While that's not what salespeople want to hear, they could certainly position themselves with companies that are looking to help companies reduce costs, increase ROI. And the very best way to accomplish that is with automation and being able to do better things with less people. So that's ROI. And if you can focus on that during a recessionary time or a slow growth time or a time that we're going through right now, then you found your next bull market, right? As Kramer likes to say on Mad Money, there's always a bull market somewhere. And that is it. And so we're lucky, grateful actually to be in that place with artificial intelligence and also robotics where, if you can automate a manual process, then you can both reduce costs for a customer and help them increase revenue.
Absolutely. And then that's great. Thanks. And then, Eric, with ONDAS, you certainly have some, large rail customers. We won't talk about the specific names, but the kind of ROI and value sell that, ONDAS, provides is fantastic.
It is, and what we're providing is really the backbone in the form of a network that they can adopt new technologies for automation. So, and just there's some simple math around this. The Class 1 rails, there's 7 of them in North America, including the 2 Canadians. And they generate something like $90 billion a year in revenue every year. And it's a critical part of the economy. It's a very dependable business. And they invest. Their capital budgets are massive. They're 15 to 20% of revenues every year. And they invest for ROI. And it's very, very, the budgeting process is very strict on that. So when you can lay out this technology and adopt the technologies that feed into the network or need the network around automation, you can run the trains 5% faster. That's just the math. Simple math is $4.5 billion a year of incremental revenue at a high margin every year. So folks like Siemens, Wabtec, big vendors, Hitachi, Alstom, they want to drive technologies. They want to drive these upgrade cycles where the rail customers can adopt these technologies, and they need the network to do that. So it's a great place to be, and it gets back to the partnership and these platform technologies and how we develop ecosystems around what we do. Dynam's a great example of partnering on American Robotics. Siemens is a great example of how we're doing it at ONDAS Networks.
Awesome. And Diana, maybe talking about sales leaders that you respect, that you've worked with over the years. So there are kind of one or two in particular?
Well, my go-to favorite is Anthony Robbins. I have his Unlimited Power book on my shelf back here. I've had it for over 20 years. The pages are yellow and dog-eared, and I still refer to it. And a lot of it is all about positioning, right? And making sure that you're not selling a product or service, that you're selling a solution, and that you're understanding what the person on the other side of the table, what their problems are, and identifying and more of a consultative approach. And so Anthony Robbins is just top of mind for me. I've had, great mentors, different CEOs that have taught me things through the years, and I'm happy to share any of those. Failing Fast is the best one I have, I think. It goes into every area, from hiring to clients to prospects, and knowing when to cut them loose, and knowing, when you've reached a point where it's not a good fit, that failing slowly is not a good option ever. So those are my two secrets.
There you go. My son, who's in the one that got drafted, I say, okay, do well fast or fail fast. But anyway, I don't know if that's good to say or not. And there's also a Anthony Robbins, you probably don't know, who's a exec currently at NVIDIA, I believe is where he is. So same name, definitely good sales leader as well, but thought you might be saying that. All right, so we have a couple of questions here. So again, feel free to comment or ask questions. So from Shannon, I guess I'll put this to Diana, kind of who is your typical buyer? So I guess, what would be the kind of executive decision maker that you're selling to?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's the sales cycle for artificial intelligence starts at the top typically. So we had talked about, what are the priorities for businesses with artificial intelligence. A lot of it is about automation and cost reduction as a result of automation, or new products and services, new markets, new revenue streams. And so oftentimes it will originate with the C-level executive. It may not be the CEO, it may be the COO or the Chief Innovation Officer or the Chief Scientific Officer, someone that has been struggling and trying to implement AI but failed, but usually the C-suite. And then after our initial meeting and they understand that we focus on decision intelligence and breaking down the process and understanding the KPIs, and it starts to become more technical, which it definitely does when you start talking about how are we going to implement this solution and what does our interaction need to be like, they'll typically pull in their CTO, someone in the data science division if they have one. And if they don't have one, we never get super technical. We just simply do our proposal, and then they're going to sign off because they know that we've got the expertise. But it's all about how you contract and developing an SOW that really just highlights the problem, the solution, the deliverables, the strategy, the roadmap, and the cost, and then getting that signature. Perfect.
That's great. And then maybe, Eric, to you from Neil, who's at a cool company, Aviso. So he asked, what's the approach to sell to typically non-tech savvy buyers in oil, gas, transportation, et cetera? So kind of, thoughts or experiences that you have.
Yeah, so I'd say as we introduce in platforms, and I'll try to be quick here, ONDAS Networks and American Robotics are a bit different, but they do have similarities in that these are technical products, and there's groups inside these large organizations who are charged with exploring technologies like ours, whether it's a wireless network or the drone platform, and validating it. So, the railroads, There's really a centralized process to adopt technologies that will be adopted by the whole industry, and there are wireless experts who do that. Then the trick is once you get your that validation, and they say, okay, we want to build a network. It's trying to get the buy-in from the folks in the field, and when we do that, it's really going out there and saying, making sure they know there's more bandwidth coming their way, and B, we work with the vendors, again, the Siemens, the Wapteks, the Hitachis of the world, who are going to create value in the network by putting more bells and whistles on the train systems that are out along the track or at the crossings or on the trains. As it relates to American Robotics, it's similar, though. There's a lot of these folks who have drone programs. They're getting their feet wet. They're using piloted drones, and they really would want to adopt autonomous technologies. And here we are, able to do that. So you see those groups who are running the drone programs working with innovation teams who are designed and tasked with, let's solve this problem. Let's find a platform that we can scale, and so we can adopt the drone technology and run the businesses better. So that's kind of the targets we have.
Oh, great. So thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Neil. So anybody else watching wants to ask questions or comment, please feel free. So now maybe going over to mentors and advice that you've received. So Diana, any kind of one or two mentors in particular, and any advice that's really stuck with you?
Well, I did the fail fast one already. That was my top mentor. And then with Anthony Robbins, and I think I've only had 3 real jobs in my whole life, so there's not that many to go to. But neuro-linguistic programming, if you know what that is, and
what programming?
Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. So sales folks that have read Anthony Robbins know it well. It's so important because as a salesperson, or even as a CEO, you have to have a really thick skin sometimes, right? I mean, not everyone is pleasant. Not everyone is easy to talk to. And I think you really need to figure out how to flip your brain so that your brain isn't running free. And, you could get depressed sometimes in sales, or you could get nervous. Am I doing a good job? Is this customer, I can't read this customer. Do they like what I'm presenting? Neuro-linguistic programming is a method that if you can remember it, it's picturing snapping your fingers, not actually doing it, but switching your brain so that you're looking at the positive rather than the negative, because it's really easy to go to the negative side. And it's easier to go to the negative side than to stay on the positive side, especially if the person on the other side is not having a good day. And so you have to remember how to remove the personal. It's business, right? Yep. And I think that that really has carried through for a good 20, 25 years for me.
Oh, that's great. Eric, what about you? Any kind of one or two mentors you've had over the years and advice that has stuck with you?
Yeah, I've had a lot of mentors in my career, and I'm very fortunate. The things that stand out to me, coming from the financial world, first as an investment banker, and then as a fund manager, is integrity. Integrity, and really, the fact that your reputation is critical. So it's always about doing the right thing. And if I extend that to what I'm doing here, it's all about customers, right? Customers and investors who are supporting what we do. It's they have to win before you do. Is kind of is the mantra that I have, and some of the things I've learned along the way.
There you go. What about advice you would give your younger self, Diana?
Oh, I was recently interviewed by someone that was speaking to an all-women audience, and my entire career has been spent not looking at things that way. And so I think, today with diversity and inclusion and talking about, making sure you have a woman on the board and you have, a fully inclusive board and all of that, it's great. But I think it almost draws too much attention to that fact that you're a minority. And I would remind my younger self that the way that I went about things, not looking at that and really thinking about more, what am I bringing to the table? What's the performance that I'm driving, rather than the color of my skin, or I'm a man or a woman. And I guess it's not advice to my former self, Randy. I didn't answer your question. This is more advice to your group, your folks.
Yeah.
I think that was really, it was impactful for me and powerful. And I almost am annoyed. Can I say that on air live? I'm a little bit annoyed that there's so much focus on, that minorities should have a bigger place. I think it's really on us to prove ourselves, and at the same level as everybody else. But just perform, just do your job, work hard, show that you're worthy, and working for good people, and knowing who you're working with and for is really important. So that comes to mind first for me.
Definitely. All right. Thank you. Eric?
So for me, I guess I'll answer it a little bit differently, kind of sort of like Diana did. The thing I've learned, and I want to share it with, because I do talk to a lot of young people, and Randy, I know you do, and this platform is terrific for people really at all stages of their career. But I think, for young and people who are just getting going and scaling themselves, is the world is incredibly competitive. It's incredibly competitive, and you really need to focus on building skills, right? Skills are personal skills, they're technical skills around business. And I get worried a bit in this, and maybe this is just episodic and part of COVID and where we're at and coming out of it. But some of the younger people have had experiences that none of us had early in our careers, and nobody ever has, and probably ever will, where you're not working for, there's just so much dynamic change, right? And I would say there's don't take for granted being present and engaged, right? You might be able to do your job today, in a venue like this. But if you extrapolate that over weeks and months and years, you're missing out on experiences that are incredibly valuable, and that worries me. So I get back to it. It's it is a competitive world, and if you don't understand that, you're in big trouble.
I concur.
Yeah, it's also too interesting. I have to always watch what we say, but the kind of the younger generation, and I was exchanging some notes this weekend with a top VC and a CEO at a tech company, and one of the I'll say the sales management and the rep from the company, we had some things going on, and I'd sent some notes on Friday, and this is like Sunday afternoon, and they needed to respond, and they basically say, sorry, it's the weekend. I'm like, well, that's BS. It's not, what I mean? It's like, but you have to, anyway.
Yeah, somebody else is going to do it if it's,
it's competitive out there.
Your lunch is not free.
It is, yeah, totally. So anyway, so time flies when you're having fun. You've both been great. Diana, thank you so much. And Eric, thank you so much. And Tucker, behind the scenes as always, appreciate you. So next week we have Annalise Hussman, who's a sales leader at Gong, for episode 99. And then after that, very excited to have Carl Eschenbach, who's a longtime tech exec and has totally crushed it at Sequoia, coming up for episode number 100. So for those that are members of Sales Community, thanks. For those that are not, you can go to salescommunity.com, and there's a tab on there. It says fall free. So you can use that one and get a free year membership, or you can do the other one and pay for it. So it's your call. And thank you so much to Open Symmetry, the sales performance management framework company. And we'll go from there. This gets posted everywhere. So if you want to share it with friends, feel free. So for those on the East Coast, have a great night. And West Coast, you still got a couple hours left, I guess. So Diana and Eric, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.